My best friend stole the name I had planned for my daughter for years, so I chose a name that made her family turn my little girl into their heir. I need to tell you about the worst thing I've ever done. Not the worst thing that's happened to me, but the thing I actively chose to do knowing it was wrong. It started at a baby shower. My best friend's baby shower. We'd been close since college, the kind of friends who knew everything about each other. I'd been trying to get pregnant for 3 years. 3 long years of negative tests and sympathetic looks. She knew all of this. She also knew about the name. The name I'd been holding on to since I was 15 years old, when my mother died. My mother's middle name was Celeste, and before she passed, during one of our last real conversations, she told me that if I ever had a daughter, Celeste would be perfect. It wasn't just a name. It was one of my last connections to her. I told my friend about this 6 years ago, during one of those late-night conversations where you share the things that matter most. She'd nodded, said it was beautiful, said she'd never use it because it was mine. So picture me at this baby shower. My friend's sister had thrown it at her house, one of those perfectly styled Pinterest events. Pink decorations everywhere, fancy desserts arranged by color, paper flowers spelling out "baby girl." The living room was packed with women cooing over impractical baby gifts. I'd brought something from her registry, an expensive baby monitor. Wrapped it carefully, wrote a careful card. Not too distant, not too warm. We played the usual games. I smiled through all of it, ate the too-sweet cake, made appropriate comments. I was doing everything right, even though every mention of how lucky she was felt like a knife. 3 years. I'd been trying for 3 years. She'd gotten pregnant her 2nd month. Life isn't fair, but it still hurt. The gift opening was almost done. She'd unwrapped adorable clothes, practical items, a breast pump that cost more than my car payment. Everyone was laughing, taking photos, sipping pink lemonade from fancy glasses. Then someone, one of her cousins I think, asked the question everyone had been waiting for. "So have you picked a name yet?" The room got quieter, everyone leaning in. This was the big reveal at these things, the moment everyone wanted. My friend glanced at her husband sitting in the corner, looking overwhelmed by all the estrogen and baby talk. He nodded, smiling. She turned back to us, placing her hand on her belly in that way pregnant women do, and smiled that secretive smile. "Actually, yes. We're naming her Celeste." The room erupted. "Oh, how beautiful. That's so elegant. It's perfect. Where did you find it?" Women rushed forward to congratulate her, to touch her belly, to gush about the name. I sat there with my face frozen in what I hoped looked like a smile. My fingers were gripping my lemonade glass so hard I was worried it would shatter. Inside, my mind was screaming, because there was no way this was a coincidence. We didn't have overlapping social circles. We didn't know the same baby name websites. This was my name, my mother's name, the name I'd told her about years ago during one of our deepest conversations. She'd taken it. Someone asked me what I thought of the name. I heard my voice, distant and strange, saying something about how lovely it was, how unique, how perfect for their little girl. All the right words in the right order while everything inside me twisted. The party continued. More gifts. More games. I made excuses to go to the bathroom twice just to sit in the quiet and breathe. The 2nd time, I looked at myself in the mirror. Makeup still perfect. Smile still in place. No one would know from looking at me that I was breaking apart inside. When the party finally ended, I helped carry gifts to her car. She hugged me, thanked me for coming, told me she'd missed me lately. I hugged her back, said all the right things, got in my car with a smile. And then I sat in her driveway for 10 minutes after everyone else left, just staring at nothing. Finally, I drove home and went straight to bed even though it was only 4 in the afternoon. After the shower, I texted her, just asking if we could talk. Her response was defensive immediately. Names couldn't be owned. Wasn't it a compliment? I'd understand when I had my own kids someday. That last part cut deepest. The friendship didn't explode, it just deflated slowly. We texted less, made excuses. When baby Celeste was born 2 months later, I sent a gift and felt nothing. Then, 4 months after that, I found out I was pregnant. I took 7 tests. My husband cried. We called our families. At the 20-week ultrasound, we found out it was a girl. The daughter I'd been dreaming about for over a decade. The one I'd been mentally naming Celeste, except I couldn't anymore. Everyone would think I copied her. Never mind that I'd had it first. The timeline would make me look petty. That's when the anger really started, the cold, planning kind. I'd lie awake thinking about revenge. My husband thought it was just pregnancy insomnia. A month later, we were invited to dinner at my friend's house. Her mother-in-law was trying to mend fences. could tell something was off. I almost said no, but curiosity won. The dinner was awkward. I cooed over baby Celeste appropriately, made small talk, avoided being alone with my friend. But when I went to use the bathroom, I passed by the hallway wall. Photos, old ones in vintage frames. A whole gallery of women, generation after generation. Under each photo was a brass plaque with their name and dates. Adelaide, every single one. Great-great-grandmother Adelaide, born 1849. Great-grandmother Adelaide, born 1876. Grandmother Adelaide, born 1900. And then the current Adelaide. My friend's mother-in-law, young and smiling in a 50s prom dress. The photo stopped there, because she'd named her son instead of continuing the tradition. And when my friend got pregnant, everyone hoped it would continue. But she'd rejected it. I remembered her complaints, how oppressive it was, how she'd never used such an old-fashioned name, Adelaide. She'd hated it. And that's when the idea hit me, perfect in its cruelty. I would name my daughter Adelaide. I'd take the name she'd rejected, honor the tradition she'd refused, and humiliate her in front of her entire in-law family. My husband asked me later why I seemed cheerful suddenly. I told him I'd had a breakthrough about names. The next few weeks, I researched everything about Adelaide. The history, the meaning, famous bearers. I genuinely grew to love it, which made it easier to justify. See, I told myself, I really do love this name. Except I was lying to myself. My husband knew I was considering Adelaide. I'd framed it as honoring a beautiful legacy. I didn't mention the revenge. He kept asking if I was sure, if I'd thought about implications. But I justified it well. Beautiful name, history, meaning, all true. But truth can be a weapon. Adelaide was born on a Tuesday morning in late September. 8 pounds, 6 ounces of perfect baby girl. By the end of the first week, I told my husband we were definitely going with Adelaide. He looked at me holding our daughter. Are you doing this because you love the name, or because you want to hurt her? I should have been honest. Instead, I'm doing this for our daughter. She deserves a name with meaning. We announced it that afternoon. The response was immediate. My friend's family went wild. Comments about tradition, about honoring family. Adelaide Sr. sent a message within an hour. She was crying. No one thought the name would continue, and I'd given her such a gift. I accepted every word of gratitude. My friend called that evening. 3 times. The 3rd time, my husband answered. She wants to talk to you, he said. Hello? What the fuck did you just do? Her voice shook with rage. I named my daughter. You took that name to get back at me. You know what it means to that family. I thought names couldn't be owned, I said sweetly. Isn't that what you told me? Silence. I chose a name with history. I'm sorry if that upsets you. She hung up. My husband looked at me. That was cruel. She stole my name first. 2 wrongs don't make a right. Maybe not, but they make it even. Except they didn't. Adelaide Sr. invited us over 3 days later. She called personally, her voice shaking with emotion, asking if she could meet the baby who carried her name. I couldn't refuse without revealing everything. My husband drove us there on a Saturday morning. She lived in a Victorian house that looked like it belonged in a storybook. 3 stories, painted a soft blue with white trim. The garden still had late-season roses blooming along the walkway, their fragrance heavy in the September air. A porch wrapped around the front with wicker furniture and hanging ferns. She answered the door before we could knock, as if she'd been watching for us. She was smaller than I'd expected, maybe 5 feet tall, leaning heavily on an ornate wooden cane, but her eyes were sharp and bright, taking in everything. Oh, she breathed when she saw Adelaide in my arms. Oh, come in, let me see her. We followed her through a hallway lined with more photos, into a living room that felt like stepping back in time. Antique furniture with careful upholstery, lace doilies on every surface, a grandfather clock ticking in the corner. Family photos covered every available space, creating a visual timeline of the family's history. She sat carefully in a wingback chair near the window and held out her arms. I hesitated only a second before handing Adelaide over. She took my daughter with the practiced ease of someone who'd held many babies, supporting her head perfectly, cooing soft words. Tears started streaming down her face immediately, dripping onto her cardigan, but she didn't seem to notice or care. I never thought I'd see this day, she said, her voice breaking. When my son had a boy instead of a girl, I thought that was it. 4 generations of Adelaide women, from my great-grandmother to me, and then nothing. I'd made my peace with it. I'd accepted that some traditions just end. She looked up at me. and the gratitude in her eyes made me feel physically sick. And then you gave me this gift, this beautiful, perfect gift. You don't know what this means. For the next 3 hours, she barely let Adelaide out of her arms except to show us things. She brought out photo albums I'd never seen, massive leather-bound books with pages yellowed by time and careful handling. "This is the first Adelaide," she said, opening to a sepia photograph. A stern woman in a high-necked Victorian dress, hair pulled back severely, standing in front of what looked like a farmhouse. Adelaide Schneider, born in Germany in 1849. She immigrated to America with her husband in 1870. They started the family farm in upstate New York. She turned pages carefully, showing me each Adelaide. This is her daughter, also Adelaide, born 1876. She's the one who kept the farm running during the First World War when her brothers went to fight. See how young she looks? She was only 18 when she took over the entire operation. More pages. Adelaide, born 1900. She survived the flu pandemic in 1918, lost 3 of her 7 children to it, but kept the rest alive through sheer determination. She was a nurse before it was common for women. Another photo, this one in sharper focus. A woman in factory overalls, standing proud in front of an assembly line. Adelaide, born 1923. My mother. She worked in a factory during World War II, building airplane parts. Became a shift supervisor. Trained dozens of women in skilled labor that people said they weren't capable of. The last photo was Adelaide Sr. herself, young and vibrant in a 50s prom dress, her hair in perfect victory rolls. And then me, born 1936. I carried this name through the Cold War, through the Civil Rights Movement, through everything. I wore it proudly. But I had a son, not a daughter. And the tradition stopped with me. She closed the album gently. Each generation faced their own challenges. Wars, pandemics, economic collapse, social upheaval. But they carried this name with strength. Being an Adelaide meant something in this family. It meant you were resilient, capable, someone who kept going no matter what. She pulled out another book from a drawer in an antique secretary desk. This one was even older, the leather cracked and faded, the pages thick and hand-cut. This is the Adelaide book. Each Adelaide, when she reached adulthood, wrote a letter in here to the next Adelaide, passing down wisdom, warnings, love. She opened it carefully, showing me pages filled with different handwriting spanning over a century and a half. Some in elegant Victorian script with flourishes and careful spelling, some in simpler block letters, some shaky with age or emotion. "Read this one," she said, pointing to an entry dated 1898. I read aloud, "To the next Adelaide. Be strong, little one, for the world will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine. But remember, you carry the strength of all who came before. You are not alone. You are part of something bigger than yourself. Trust yourself even when others doubt you. The name Adelaide means noble-natured, and you must live up to that nobility. With love, Adelaide." "Beautiful, isn't it?" Adelaide Sr. said softly. Each letter is like that. Advice, encouragement, sometimes warnings about specific family members. She smiled slightly. "My grandmother warned me about Uncle Frank and his gambling." She found another page. "This is my entry. I wrote it when I was 21, just after I'd gotten married." Her handwriting had been crisp and confident then, though time had faded the ink. "I wrote about how scared I was, how I didn't know if I could live up to all these amazing women, but they gave me strength." She closed the book and pressed it into my hands. "Your Adelaide will write in this someday, when she's old enough to understand what it means. She'll be part of this chain of strong women." I stared at the book, feeling its weight. The literal weight of the paper and binding, but also the metaphorical weight of all those women's words. Women my daughter had no actual blood connection to. "I can't take this," I managed to say. "This is too precious. This should stay in your family." "It is staying in my family," she said firmly. "Your daughter is my family now. She carries the name. She carries the legacy. That makes her an Adelaide in every way that matters. But your granddaughter..." Her expression shifted slightly, something I couldn't quite read. Pain, maybe, or disappointment. "My granddaughter chose a different path. A beautiful path, with a beautiful name. I love her dearly. But you chose to honor our family's history. That means something." Before we left, she brought out one more thing. A small wooden box, the kind with a tiny brass clasp, worn smooth by generations of handling. The wood was dark with age, probably walnut, with delicate inlay work on the lid. "This has been passed down through every Adelaide," she said, opening it carefully. Inside, nestled on faded red velvet, was a necklace. A a simple gold chain with a pendant engraved with the letter A in ornate, flowing script. The gold had that soft, warm glow that only comes from being very old and very loved. My great-great-grandmother, the first Adelaide, brought this from Germany. She wore it every day of her life. When she died, it went to her daughter, then to my grandmother, then to my mother, then to me. She held it up to the light streaming through the window. The pendant spun slowly, catching glints of afternoon sun, the engraving catching shadows. I wore this on my wedding day. I wore it the day my son was born. I've kept it in this box for 37 years, hoping I'd have someone to give it to, hoping the tradition would somehow continue. She pressed the necklace into my hand, and the gold was still warm from her palm, from being held close. This is for your Adelaide. Not now, obviously, she's far too young. But when she's older, maybe on her 16th birthday, or when she graduates high school, or when she gets married, whenever feels right to you, tell her about all the Adelaide women who wore it before her. Tell her she's part of something bigger than herself. I stared at it, this family heirloom worth more than its weight in gold because of what it represented. My daughter had no blood claim to it. She was only Adelaide because I'd chosen the name as a weapon. I really can't accept this. This should go to your granddaughter. This is her family's history. Your daughter is my family now, Adelaide Sr. repeated, and there was steel in her voice despite the emotion. She carries the name. She carries the legacy. Blood isn't the only thing that makes family. Sometimes it's choice. Sometimes it's love. Sometimes it's simply carrying forward what others built. And you chose to carry this forward. After we left, I sat in the car for 15 minutes before I could speak. My husband had started the engine but hadn't put it in gear. He just waited, watching me stare at the necklace in my lap and the leather book on my knees. I've made a terrible mistake, I finally whispered. I know. She thinks I honored her family. She thinks I chose this name out of respect and love and reverence for tradition. She gave me a family heirloom that's over 150 years old because she believes my daughter is part of their legacy. She gave me a book filled with letters from women who've been dead for generations because she thinks Adelaide will add her own letter someday. I know. Every word of thanks she gave me was based on a lie. She looked at me with such gratitude, such pure joy, and I've been lying to her face this entire time. She gave me her family's treasures, and I don't deserve any of it. My husband was quiet for a long moment, his hands on the steering wheel, staring out at Adelaide Sr.'s beautiful house. What are you going to do about it? I don't know. How do I tell her the truth? That I chose this name specifically to hurt her granddaughter-in-law? That I saw this beautiful tradition and decided to use it as a weapon? That every time she's thanked me, I've been secretly pleased about how much it must be hurting my ex-friend? I don't know either. But you need to figure it out, because this is only going to get more complicated. Every day you let this continue. Every gift you accept. Every family event you attend. You're digging yourself deeper. He was absolutely right. It did get more complicated. The next few months, Adelaide Sr. invited us constantly. Sent gifts. Included us in everything. And I accepted it all. Thanksgiving that year was at Adelaide Sr.'s house. The entire extended family gathered, maybe 30 people crammed into her dining room and overflowing into the living room. My ex-friend was there with her husband and Celeste, who was almost 6 months old now. I watched the dynamics unfold all afternoon. Adelaide Sr. kept calling me over to introduce me to relatives. "This is the mother of our youngest Adelaide," she'd say, beaming. She'd ask me to hold Adelaide while she showed off the baby to cousins and aunts and uncles. Finally, someone who understood the importance of family tradition, I heard her tell someone. Meanwhile, my ex-friend sat on the couch with Celeste, largely ignored. When family members did talk to her, it was polite but brief. No one asked to hold Celeste. No one gushed over her the way they did over Adelaide. I could see her husband's jaw getting tighter throughout the day. At one point, Adelaide Sr.'s sister pulled me aside. "We're so glad someone finally honored the Adelaide tradition. My sister was heartbroken when she thought it was over. You've given her such joy in her final years." Her final years? She hasn't told you? The doctors found cancer 6 months ago. Pancreatic. She refused treatment, said she was 88 and had lived a full life. They're saying maybe 2 years, probably less. The information hit me like a punch. Adelaide Sr. was dying, and I'd given her this gift of the continued tradition that was based entirely on a lie and revenge. During dinner, seated at the main table while my ex-friend sat at the card table in the living room with the overflow guests, I felt Adelaide Sr.'s hand on mine. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for giving me this before I go, for letting me see the tradition continue. I couldn't eat after that. Eat after." excused myself to the bathroom, and sat on the closed toilet lid for 10 minutes, trying not to cry. When I came out, my ex-friend was in the hallway, clearly waiting for me. "Are you happy now?" she whispered, angry tears in her eyes. "Is this what you wanted? To watch me be pushed aside at my own family gatherings?" I didn't. "Don't lie. You knew exactly what would happen. You're enjoying every second of this." She was right. Part of me had been enjoying it in a sick way, watching her discomfort, her marginalization, her hurt, proof that my revenge was working. "I'm sorry," I started to say, but she'd already walked away. My husband found me standing in the hallway, frozen. "We're leaving," he said quietly. "You've been crying in the bathroom. Your friend is crying in the kitchen. And this whole situation is toxic. Get Adelaide. We're going." In the car, he was silent for a long time. Then, "Do you realize Adelaide Sr. is dying? Someone told me tonight. And you're going to let her die believing a lie. Believing you honored her family when really you just wanted to hurt someone. I don't know how to tell her. You need to figure it out. Because this isn't just about you and your ex-friend anymore. It's about a dying woman who deserves to know the truth." At family dinners, I'd watch my friend in the corner with Celeste while everyone clustered around me and baby Adelaide. Adelaide Sr. would tell stories about the family tradition, and my ex-friend would excuse herself early every time, always with some excuse about the baby's schedule. People noticed. Our mutual friends pulled away. Some of them tried to stay neutral, but eventually they picked sides or just drifted away from both of us. Uncomfortable with the drama. A few friendships never recovered, and I had to accept that as part of the cost of what I'd done. My husband kept questioning, "Do you really like her, or do you just like hurting your friend?" The vindication never came. I felt empty. Worse than empty. 3 months after Adelaide was born, I had a complete breakdown. My husband found me at 2 a.m, holding our sleeping daughter and sobbing, full-body sobs. "I ruined her," I kept saying. "I ruined her name." He took Adelaide, checked my grip hadn't been too tight, put her back in the crib, then sat on the floor and held me while I cried. For what felt like hours. When I could breathe again. "You need to talk to someone professional. This isn't normal grief. I don't need therapy. You weaponized our daughter's name. You chose it specifically to hurt someone. That's not normal. You need help." He was right. It took another month before I made an appointment. My therapist was a woman in her 60s, silver hair, glasses on a chain, small office filled with books and plants. That first session, I cried for 20 minutes before I could speak. Then I told her everything. My mother's death at 15, the name she'd given me, 3 years of infertility, the betrayal at the baby shower, the revenge. She listened without interrupting, then asked one question. "When you look at your daughter, do you see her, or do you see what you did to your friend?" "I see both," I whispered, "and I hate myself for it. That's what we're going to work on." She made me examine everything. "Your friend betrayed you. That pain is valid. But you didn't just respond, you escalated. Do you see the difference?" I did. My friend had been selfish and thoughtless. I'd been calculating and cruel. "Tell me about your mother," I told her. Growing up with a single mom who worked 2 jobs. How she'd been my whole world. The cancer diagnosis at 14, sitting by her bedside those last weeks. And the name conversation? She was having a good day. The medication was working. We were talking about the future. And she said, "What about babies? Have you thought about being a mother?" I said yes. Eventually. She smiled. "If you have a daughter, Celeste would be beautiful. It means heavenly. That's what you've been to me." She died 2 weeks later. I was 15. So when your friend took that name, it wasn't just a name. It was your last real conversation with your mother. Yes, and she knew. I told her that exact story years ago. And that's why you wanted to hurt her so badly. Yes. But did hurting her give you back what you lost? No, nothing can. She helped me see patterns. How I'd spent years feeling powerless. Mother's death, infertility, the betrayal. And when I finally had control, I chose cruelty. You couldn't control your mother's cancer. You couldn't control your fertility. But you could control your daughter's name. And you used that power as a weapon. I did. Do you see how that's the opposite of what you needed? You needed healthy power. Instead, you perpetuated pain. Nothing changed except now there were 2 hurt people. Therapy became weekly. Every Thursday at 2. I worked through grief I'd never processed. But did it work? She asked during our 8th session. Do you feel better now? No. I feel worse. Every time I look at Adelaide, I see what I did. Every time someone compliments her name, I remember why. Then maybe it's time to try to make it right. Making it right felt impossible. I couldn't change her name, but I couldn't leave things poisoned either. I texted my friend, "Can we talk?" 3 hours later, "I don't know what there is to say. I want to apologize." "For which part?" "Both. All of it. Please." We met at a coffee shop. Neutral ground. I left Adelaide with my husband, who told me to be really honest this time. She arrived 10 minutes late, Celeste in a carrier. She looked exhausted. Dark circles, messy bun, milk-stained shirt. She'd stopped caring about appearances around me. We got drinks in silence, sat at a corner table. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. "I'm sorry," I finally said. "Not for being angry about what you did. I'm still angry. But for using Adelaide's name as a weapon. That was wrong. I knew it was wrong, and I did it anyway." "You think? Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I know I hurt you." "Hurt me?" She laughed bitterly. "Let me tell you what the last 4 months have been like. My mother-in-law barely speaks to me. At family dinners, everyone clusters around you while I sit alone. His family treats me like I'm selfish. And there's nothing I can do because you've taken the moral high ground with a name you chose specifically to hurt me." She was crying now. My marriage almost ended. The constant tension. My husband asking over and over why I didn't use the family name. I couldn't tell him I genuinely hated it because then he'd think I was shallow. So instead he thinks I'm difficult. "I didn't think, didn't you?" She looked at me directly. "You're smart. You knew exactly what would happen. That's why you did it." She was right. I had known. "What you don't know," she said quietly, "is that I almost didn't use Celeste. I knew it would hurt you, but I loved it so much. I convinced myself you'd understand eventually, that our friendship could handle it. That wasn't your call to make. I know. God, I know. But I was pregnant and hormonal and in love with the name. I rationalized it 100 ways. And I'm sorry. I should have asked." We sat there crying. Two tired mothers with daughters named after each other's pain. "I don't think we can be friends again," she said eventually. "Too much has happened." "I know. But maybe we can coexist. For the girls. I'd like to try." We finished our coffee, exchanged an awkward hug, promised to text, to be civil at events. It wasn't closure, but it was something. The next months were difficult. We'd see each other at gatherings, tension obvious. We'd make small talk, avoid being alone. Adelaide Sr. continued welcoming me. My therapist called me on it. "You said you wanted to make things right, but you're still participating in behavior that hurts her. Because I like Adelaide Sr., because my daughter deserves that history. Are you spending time with that family because you value it, or because it hurts your friend?" I couldn't answer honestly. I started declining some invitations, not all, but enough to prove I could. 4 months after our coffee talk, my friend texted, "I need help. Can I call?" When she called, her voice was shaky. "I'm pregnant again. 8 weeks. And I don't want name drama again. So I'm asking you to help me figure out a name." I was stunned. "You want my help? You're the only person who really gets it." We talked for an hour. She told me names she liked. I listened without judgment. For the first time in over a year, we were just talking. "What about Iris?" I suggested. "Your grandmother's middle name. Traditional enough for the family, but fresh. It would sound good with Celeste." Silence. Then, "Iris, Iris and Celeste." Pause. "I actually love that. It feels like mine." "Then that's your name. If you love it, that's all that counts. Thank you. For helping, for not steering me wrong, for being here." "Of course." I was crying. Not sad tears. Something else. Relief, maybe. Hope. When we hung up, I sat there feeling genuine connection for the first time in months. The weeks after that call were tentative. She texted me a photo of the positive pregnancy test with just a smiley face. I sent back congratulations. A few days later, she asked if I knew a good OB. I recommended mine. Small exchanges, careful and polite. Then she sent a photo of Celeste doing something funny, no context, just sharing a moment. I sent one back of Adelaide covered in spaghetti sauce. We started texting more frequently. Nothing deep, just mom stuff, teething remedies, sleep schedules, the mundane details that used to fill our friendship. 3 months into her pregnancy, we met for coffee again. This time with less tension. We still avoided certain topics, still moved carefully around each other, but we laughed about diaper blowouts and exhaustion. We were finding something new in the wreckage of what we destroyed. A year passed. Adelaide learned to walk, then run. My friend had Iris in the spring. Perfect baby, calm temperament. I went to the shower and stayed the whole time, genuinely there to support. Adelaide Sr. was there too. She held both Celeste and Adelaide, making sure everyone saw her treating them equally. She introduced me as the mother of Adelaide, our youngest Adelaide, with pride that made me feel welcomed and guilty. There was a moment in the kitchen, just my friend and me refilling drinks. "Thank you for coming," she said, "and for the gift." "Of course. I'm really happy for you. Iris is a beautiful name." She smiled. "It feels right. It feels like mine in a way Celeste never quite did, as much as I love it now. Does that make sense?" "It does. Choosing it for the right reasons makes all the difference." She nodded, understanding the subtext. We weren't friends, but we were something real. We'd text about milestones. She sent a photo when Celeste took first steps. I sent one when Adelaide said her first sentence. We'd meet monthly for coffee, daughters playing together. It was careful. We were aware of how easily we could hurt each other, but it was honest. But the real reckoning came when Adelaide was 15 months old. A Tuesday afternoon, ordinary in every way except what was about to happen. There was a knock at my door. Adelaide Sr. stood there, and the change in her was visible. She'd aged noticeably in the past few months. The cancer was taking its toll. She was thinner, more fragile, leaning more heavily on her cane, but her eyes were still sharp. "Can we talk?" she asked. Not a request, a requirement. I made tea with shaking hands, my mind racing through possibilities. What did she know? What had someone told her? Adelaide was in the living room playing with blocks, happily oblivious, stacking them up and knocking them down with delighted shrieks. We sat in my living room, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows, Adelaide's toys scattered across the floor. For a long moment, Adelaide Sr. just watched my daughter play. Her expression was complicated. Love, certainly, but also sadness. Disappointment, maybe. "She's beautiful," she said finally. "So much like the Adelaides who came before. Strong-willed, determined. She has that look, you know, that Adelaide look." "Thank you," I managed. "I need to ask you something," she said, turning those sharp eyes on me. "And I need complete, absolute honesty. No deflection, no pretty lies, just truth." My stomach dropped. My hands tightened around my teacup. "Okay. Why did you really choose Adelaide?" The question hung in the air between us. I could have lied. Every instinct screamed at me to lie, to maintain the fiction, to keep the peace. But after months of therapy, after all the work I'd done on honesty and accountability, I couldn't. "Because your granddaughter-in-law took a name from me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "A sacred name. The name my mother gave me before she died. My mother's middle name was Celeste, and she told me when she was dying that if I ever had a daughter, I should name her Celeste. It was one of my last real conversations with her. I was 15 years old, and my mother was dying, and she gave me this gift. And I told my friend about it years ago, in confidence, thinking she was someone I could trust with something so precious. I took a shaky breath, and then she took it. She used it for her own daughter. And when I confronted her, she said names couldn't be owned, that I'd understand when I had my own kids. It destroyed me, and I wanted to hurt her back. So when I found out I was having a girl, I looked for a way to make her feel what I felt. And then I came to that dinner at her house and I saw the photos in the hallway. All the Adelaide women. And I remembered how she'd complained about the tradition, how she'd rejected it, how she'd fought with you about it. The words were pouring out now, confession after months of holding it in. So I took the name she'd rejected. I chose it deliberately, specifically to humiliate her in front of your family, to make her look selfish and disrespectful, to align myself with you and marginalize her. Every time you thanked me, every time you told me how grateful you were, part of me was pleased because I knew how much it was hurting her. I chose Adelaide as a weapon, not out of love for the tradition, not out of respect for your family, out of pure, calculated revenge. Adelaide Sr. was quiet for so long I thought she'd never speak again. The silence stretched out, broken only by the sound of Adelaide playing, knocking over her blocks and laughing. Then, I suspected as much. That surprised me. "You knew?" "Not for certain, not at first. But over time, things didn't quite add up. The timing was too perfect, too convenient. Your friend gets pregnant, uses a name that clearly has significance to you based on your reaction, and then 4 months later you're pregnant and suddenly deeply interested in our family tradition. The way you accepted my gratitude too easily, without the humility you'd expect from someone genuinely honored by being included in something so meaningful. The way you never asked questions about the family history until after you'd already chosen the name. Small things, but they added up." She paused. And when she spoke again, her voice was heavy with pain. "My granddaughter told me last week. We had a long conversation. She told me about your mother, about Celeste, about how precious that name was to you, about how she took it anyway, convinced herself it would be fine, and about what you did in response. I'm sorry, I whispered, tears streaming down my face now. I'm so sorry. I took your family tradition, something sacred and beautiful that you'd cherished for your entire life, and I used it as a weapon. I manipulated you. I manipulated your whole family. You gave me the book, the necklace, your trust, your gratitude, and all of it was based on a lie. Yes, she said quietly. It was. And there was real pain in her voice. Not anger, pain. I gave you that necklace believing you honored our family. I shared our history with you, opened our hearts to you, included you in our traditions. I told you stories about my mother, my grandmother, women you never knew but whose legacy I was entrusting to you. And all of it, every moment of joy I felt at the tradition continuing, was based on a lie. She looked at Adelaide playing. That baby is innocent. She had no say in any of this. She didn't choose her name, didn't choose to be caught in the middle of your pain and anger. She turned back to me. And the name is hers now. Not yours to weaponize anymore, not mine to withhold. She's Adelaide. That's simply who she is. I don't deserve your grace, I said. No, she said firmly. You don't. What you did hurt me deeply. It hurt my granddaughter-in-law, whom I love. It hurt your own family. You took something beautiful and pure and made it ugly. You used a dying woman's joy as part of your revenge scheme. Do you understand how that feels? To know that something that brought me such happiness in my final years was really just a weapon? I couldn't speak, could only nod and cry. But, she continued, and her voice softened slightly, I won't punish a child for her mother's mistakes. That baby deserves to know her heritage, complicated as it's become. She deserves to understand where her name comes from, what it's meant to the women who carried it before her. And she deserves the chance to make it mean something good, something pure again. She stood slowly, the movement clearly painful. Keep bringing her to family events if you want. Let her know her extended family. Let her hear the stories, but remember, every single time you walk through that door that you chose this name for the wrong reasons, and you owe it to her, to all of us, but especially to her, to make sure she never feels that weight. You owe it to her to turn your terrible choice into something good. At the door, she turned back one more time. I'm 88 years old. I have cancer. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months, maybe a year. I don't have time for complicated emotions or extended grudges, but I do have time for disappointment. And I am deeply disappointed in you. I thought you were someone different, someone honorable, and you're not. But I hope for Adelaide's sake that you can become that person. After she left, I sat there on the floor for an hour, just watching Adelaide play. She was so happy, so innocent, stacking her blocks and knocking them down and laughing every time. She had no idea that her name was a battleground, that she'd been used as a weapon, that the grandmother figure who loved her had been lied to and hurt. When my husband came home, he found me still sitting there, Adelaide now napping on the couch beside me. What happened? He asked, immediately concerned. Adelaide Sr. came. She knows. She asked me directly and I told her the truth. He sat down heavily. And she said she's deeply disappointed in me, that what I did hurt her, that I used a dying woman's joy as part of my revenge. But she's not going to punish Adelaide for it. She said the name is Adelaide's now, that the baby is innocent, and that I owe it to her to make sure she never feels the weight of my choices. How do you feel? Like I finally got what I deserved. She didn't yell, she didn't throw me out. She just told me the truth, that I hurt her, that she's disappointed in who I turned out to be. And somehow that's worse than anything else could have been. Worse than anger. Worse than being cut off. Just disappointment. He pulled me close. Maybe that's what you needed to hear. Maybe that's what finally makes this real. It's been real. I've been feeling guilty for months. But now you've faced the consequences. Now someone you respect has looked you in the eye and told you that you hurt them. That's different than just feeling bad in private. He was right. And it changed something in me. Not instantly, not like a switch flipping, but it planted something that would grow over the coming months. The understanding that my choices had real costs, that people I cared about had been genuinely hurt, and that I couldn't undo any of it. I could only try to do better going forward. Maybe. 2 months later, we threw Adelaide's first birthday party at our house. I'd gone all out, partly because I genuinely wanted to celebrate, partly because I wanted to prove something. The backyard was decorated with balloons and streamers. I'd ordered a custom cake shaped like a carousel. There were games for the older kids, a bubble machine, a small petting zoo I'd rented for the afternoon. Both families came. My parents drove in from out of state. My in-laws brought enough presents for 3 birthdays. Adelaide Sr. arrived with several family members, including 2 of her children and their families. My ex-friend came with her husband, Celeste, and baby Iris, who was now 6 months old. I watched Adelaide Sr. carefully that day. The warmth from our first meetings was still there, but something had shifted. She was polite, loving even toward baby Adelaide. But there was a distance that hadn't been there before. A carefulness. She held Adelaide briefly while we sang happy birthday, smiled for photos, but she left early, citing fatigue. Her daughter stayed behind and pulled me aside. "Mother's been struggling," she said. "The cancer is progressing faster than they expected, and she's been troubled lately. She won't tell us why." After most guests had left, after my parents and in-laws had taken Adelaide inside for her nap, my husband asked the few remaining people to give us a minute. When it was just us in the backyard, surrounded by the debris of the party, he sat down heavily at the picnic table. "We need to talk about something I should have said a long time ago." I sat across from him, my stomach dropping. "When you chose Adelaide's name, did you think about how it would affect our marriage? Did you think about the fact that I'd have to watch you deliberately hurt someone? That I'd have to sit at Thanksgiving dinner watching you marginalize your so-called friend? That I'd be complicit by silence in all of this?" "No," I whispered. "I didn't think about you at all. I was so consumed by my own pain and anger that I didn't consider how my revenge would affect you, how it would make you feel to be married to someone capable of that kind of calculated cruelty. It made me question whether I knew you at all," he said, and his voice was thick with emotion he'd been holding back for months. "Whether the person I married, the person I thought was kind and good, was actually capable of this level of manipulation. I've been watching you for a year now, watching you play this sick game, and I don't know what to do. I'm in therapy. I'm working on it. Are you? Because you're still going to Adelaide Sr.'s events, still accepting her gratitude, still letting a dying woman believe a lie. That's not growth. That's just continuing the same pattern. What do you want me to do? I want you to be honest. With her, with your friend, with yourself. I want you to stop pretending this was ever about honoring a tradition and admit it was about hurting someone. And I want you to figure out if the person you've become is someone you want to be." He stood up. "I love you. I love Adelaide. But I don't know if I can keep watching this. I don't know if I can keep being part of it. You need to make a choice about what kind of person you want to be, what kind of mother you want to be." He went inside, leaving me alone in the backyard, with my thoughts and my guilt and the wreckage of a party that should have been purely joyful. 6 months after that conversation, Adelaide Sr. passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was 89. The funeral was massive. 5 generations mourning a woman who'd lived through wars and pandemics and massive change. The church was packed, standing room only, with people spilling out into the vestibule and onto the steps outside. The service was beautiful. Person after person stood up to share stories about her strength, her grace, her generosity, her refusal to hold grudges. That last one hit me hard. Her own children talked about how she'd always believed in second chances, how she'd taught them that people could grow and change. I sat in the back with my husband and Adelaide, who was nearly 2 now, talking in full sentences, asking questions about everything, bossing everyone around with the confidence of a child who'd never been told she couldn't do something. She kept asking why everyone was crying, why great-grandma wasn't there to hold her. My ex-friend sat several rows ahead with her husband, Celeste, and Iris. We'd made eye contact when we arrived, exchanged sad nods, united in grief, if nothing else. At the reception afterward, held in the church basement with folding tables covered in casseroles and cookies brought by seemingly everyone in town, my ex-friend and I found ourselves standing together near the coffee station. We watched our daughters play together in a corner. Adelaide was nearly 2, talking constantly, showing Celeste her shoes. Celeste was almost 3, being patient with the younger child. Iris was a happy baby being passed between relatives, getting all the attention babies get at sad events because they represent hope and the future. "She knew," my friend said quietly, not looking at me, "about why you really chose the name. She told me a few months before she died." "I know. She confronted me about it when Adelaide was 15 months old. I told her the truth. And she still included your daughter. Still treated her like she belonged." My friend's voice was full of something I couldn't quite identify. Not quite forgiveness, but something softer than anger. She said the name was Adelaide's now, that the baby was innocent of my choices. We stood in silence for a moment, both of us watching our daughters. Adelaide was trying to share her cookie with Celeste, getting crumbs everywhere. I need to say something, I said, turning to face her properly. I named my daughter to hurt you. I chose Adelaide specifically because you'd rejected it, because I knew it would humiliate you in front of your in-laws, because I wanted you to feel the pain I felt when you took Celeste. It was calculated and cruel, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of it. She was quiet for a long time, her eyes shiny with tears. I named my daughter without asking you, without respecting what that name meant to you, how sacred it was, how tied it was to your mother and your grief. I took something precious without permission because I wanted it, and I convinced myself you'd get over it. And I'm sorry too. Where do we go from here? Forward, she said, finally looking at me. That's all we can do. We can't change what we did. We can't undo the hurt. But we can stop letting it poison everything. We can let our daughters just be kids with names, instead of symbols of our mistakes. An elderly woman approached us then. Adelaide Sr.'s younger sister, maybe 85 herself. Excuse me, she said to me. You're Adelaide's mother? Yes. She handed me a wrapped package. My sister wanted you to have this. She gave it to me 6 months ago with instructions to give it to you after she passed. My hands shook as I unwrapped it. Inside was the leather book, the Adelaide book with all the letters spanning a century and a half. She wanted your daughter to have it, the sister said. She said to tell you that whatever happened, Adelaide is still an Adelaide. That mistakes don't have to be the end of the story. That she believed in second chances and growth, and she hoped you'd believe in them too. I held the book, feeling its weight. All those women's words, all that history. Even after everything, after I told her the truth, the sister smiled sadly. My sister believed people could grow. That mistakes didn't define you forever if you learned from them. She was disappointed in your choices, deeply disappointed. She told me that. But she also said she saw you trying to do better. That you were honest when she confronted you, that you didn't make excuses. And she believed in giving people room to change. She patted my arm. She wanted your Adelaide to write in that book someday, just like the others. She wanted the tradition to continue, even though it started from complicated places. She said that's what traditions do sometimes. They start one way and become something else. And what matters isn't always how something begins, but what you make of it. After she walked away, my ex-friend asked quietly, "What is that?" It's the book, the Adelaide book, where each Adelaide writes a letter to the next one when she's old enough. Adelaide Sr. had it. She left it for my daughter. My friend was quiet. Then she was remarkable, wasn't she? Even at the end, even after knowing everything's grace, I didn't deserve it. But Adelaide, your daughter, she deserves to be part of that legacy. Even if it started from your revenge. Adelaide Sr. understood that. We stood there together, two tired mothers with our daughters named after each other's pain, holding on to grace we hadn't earned, trying to figure out how to be better than we'd been. The reception continued around us. People shared more stories about Adelaide Sr. Her children organized photos and mementos to be distributed among family. Someone started playing old hymns on the piano, life continuing even in the middle of grief. Before we left, my ex-friend's mother-in-law approached me. I tensed, expecting anger or coldness. Instead, she hugged me. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for making my mother's last years happy, for giving her the gift of seeing the tradition continue. I know the circumstances were complicated. She told me everything, but she also told me she believed your daughter would make the name mean something good. That's what she hoped for." After everyone left, after I'd put Adelaide to bed, I sat in the quiet house with the leather book open in my lap. I read through the letters again, all those Adelaide voices across time, advice about strength and resilience, warnings about family members and money troubles, expressions of love and hope for the future. The last entry was Adelaide Sr.'s, written when she was 21, young and hopeful, newly married, believing she'd have a daughter to pass everything to. But life hadn't worked out that way. And yet here was the book, passed on anyway, tradition continuing in unexpected ways. I pulled out a pen and, on a blank page at the back, I wrote my own entry. Not for Adelaide Sr., for my daughter, for when she'd be old enough to understand. Adelaide, this book was given to you by a woman who showed me grace I didn't deserve. Your name has a complicated history. I chose it for the wrong reasons, out of pain and anger and a desire for revenge. But Adelaide Sr. believed you could make it mean something good. She believed traditions could transform, that mistakes could lead to growth, that people could change. I hope she was right. I hope when you're old enough to understand all of this, you'll choose to make your name yours in the best possible way. With love and hope for your future, your mother. That night, I pulled out the leather journal and the wooden box with the necklace. the journal where I'd been recording everything, the necklace Adelaide Sr. had given me, believing I'd honored her family. I wrote a final entry. Adelaide, when you read this someday, you'll learn your mother made a terrible choice. I chose your name out of revenge, not love. I weaponized your identity. I hope you can forgive me. But more than that, I hope you understand that terrible beginnings don't have to dictate everything that follows. Your great-grandmother knew why I'd really chosen your name, and she chose Grace anyway. She was disappointed in me, hurt by me, but she still welcomed you. She showed me that people can make cruel choices and still raise kind children. The name Adelaide belongs to you now. You get to decide what it means, and I hope you'll make it mean something good. Not because you have to redeem my choices, but because you deserve a name that's yours, free from the weight I put on it. I closed the journal and placed the necklace on top of it. Someday, when she was 25 or 30, I'd give her both, the truth and the heirloom. Let her decide what to do with them. My husband found me. You okay? I've been thinking about what Adelaide Sr. said, about how I need to make sure our daughter never feels the weight of my choices. And I think giving her the truth when she's old enough is part of that. Not hiding it, letting her know her own history. What if she hates you for it? Then I accept that. Hiding it doesn't make it not real. It just makes it a secret. And secrets come out at the worst times. That's growth. Now, as I write this, Adelaide is 3 years old. She introduces herself with confidence. I'm Adelaide. No hesitation. It's just who she is. My friend and I text regularly about parenting. We meet monthly for coffee. It's not the friendship we had before. We're too careful now, but it's real and honest. We know each other's worst moments and show up anyway. I still see Adelaide Sr.'s family occasionally, but I'm mindful about motivations. I check before accepting invitations. Is this for Adelaide or for some other reason? Last week, at a family gathering, one of Adelaide Sr.'s daughters pulled me aside. Mother wanted you to have this. She handed me the leather book, the one with all the Adelaide letters. She said to give it to you after she passed. Said your daughter should write in it when she's old enough, just like the others. That whatever happened, Adelaide is still an Adelaide. I held the book, feeling its weight. Even after everything, Mother believed people could grow. That mistakes didn't have to be the end. She was disappointed in your choices, but she believed in second chances. That night, I added the book to the wooden box with the necklace and journal. 3 things for my daughter. The truth about her name, the necklace connecting her to the Adelaide women, and the book where she'll write her own letter someday. The past is permanent, but I can shape what comes next. I can make sure Adelaide grows up knowing she was loved, that her name is hers, that she's not responsible for the complicated history that led to it. My husband asks sometimes if I regret it. If you could go back, would you choose a different name? I pause before answering. I regret my motivations. I regret the cruelty, but I can't regret her name, because she's so perfectly Adelaide now. She made it hers. You chose it for the wrong reasons, but she claimed it for the right ones. He's right. I gave Adelaide a name wrapped in revenge, and she took it and made it simple again. Just her name. Adelaide is sleeping in her room right now. Tomorrow she'll wake up and demand pancakes and insist on wearing her purple dress. She'll ask a million questions about everything. She'll just be a kid with a name, becoming whoever she's going to be. And that, finally, is enough.